How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another edition of the CreamCityCast. I'm your host, Dylan Piccolo, and I am joined by my longtime guest, back on the saddle, Alexander Juneau, editor-in-chief of Cream City. What is up, my man? It's been a long time, but I feel like the synergy is there, and we're going to go back at it and just, hit the ground running.
I'm happy to be back talking basketball. It's been a while.
It's kind of like an itch. I don't know. You can develop it over a period of time. But since we've last talked, a lot has happened. Obviously, the Bucks are winning percentage-wise near the top or at the top of the NBA at this point. And they have a matchup on Friday night after a couple days off since Monday's victory over the Mavericks. And they will face the Charlotte Hornets, a team that they've kind of always weirdly had a problem with because they always play them on kind of like let up days on like a Tuesday, middle of the week, and it usually didn't end up well for the Bucks, and they're 1-1 on the season against the Charlotte. Al, talk a little bit about the Bucks so far in the season. We can talk about Charlotte obviously in a little bit, but just tell me what you're seeing because it's been a while since we've done this together.
One sort of interesting note on Charlotte. I believe Charlotte's the only team they played twice that has like a positive point differential against the Bucks, because typically when they've lost to a team, they've came back the next game with a vengeance and just blown them out. But if you'll recall, Charlotte won the second game, and the Bucks narrowly escaped with a victory in the first game, with Nick Batum missing at the buzzer. So I expect that the Bucks are going to kind of want to come out and make a statement. But looking at the Bucks as a whole, they're a really scary team right now. Like, they're just taking care of business. I believe they're like 8-2 in the month of January or something crazy like that. Like, I think they've won 16 of their last 19. They're just on a tear right now. Like, they started off 7-0, and then they were kind of rotating wins and losses for a few games. But now they're just like cementing themselves as one of the best teams in the league. I believe they have a 2-game lead in the loss column over any other team, and they're ahead in winning percentage by about 6% over the next closest team. They're just the best team in basketball right now.
And what I find most interesting about it is the way that they're doing it, because you're starting to see them learn how to win in many different ways. And that's kind of the beauty of this team. Their bench, their three main players, and even their two other starters are all kind of molded to be interchangeable pieces to succeed on a given night. We saw it against Orlando where Eric Bledsoe needed to be the guy. We've seen it before where Giannis doesn't have a big game. We've seen it where Giannis is a massive game. And the same goes for Khris. I think when you have interchangeable depth like that, I think it can really, elevate you to win a lot of these games early in the season when not necessarily as much is on the line. But we have seen the Bucks win the games that, there are a lot of things on the line.
Absolutely. You can't even put into words how good the team has been this year, just because they're doing it in so many different ways and they're doing it so consistently. They've had a few letdown games, losing in New York against the Knicks and losing at home to the Suns, but every team in the NBA has those. And for the most part, they've been overwhelmingly dominant, which is best demonstrated by their record and net rating.
Yep, that's true. When you are the kings of net rating, you are the kings of NBA Twitter, it seems like, as there are always charts going across my timeline with the Bucks in that beautiful little upper right-hand corner, just hanging out up there with everyone else, hanging out in the swallows below. It's a good feeling.
It's awesome. They're a top 3 offense, a top 3 defense. I think I saw on Twitter today that no other team is top 8 in both. So the Bucks are like, I don't even think like we know a good way to express it, because literally this sort of dominance, we've only seen it by the Warriors and whatever team LeBron James is on. And even that was multiple years ago for him. We just don't see this kind of dominance in the NBA. We don't see a team that's so consistently good on both sides of the court. There are some people who want to draw the comparison to the 60-win Hawks, and it's like they didn't have Giannis. Giannis is the differentiating factor between the Bucks and so many NBA teams. The Bucks have a Giannis. everybody wants to have a Giannis because all Giannis does is dunk the basketball, and he does it a lot, and he does it all the time.
Can you just like go into a little bit about some specifics you like about the Bucks offense? I mean, that you've seen. I know like you're smiling, you're foaming at the mouth, getting ready to tell me about what the Bucks do so well. But I mean, there are a significant amount of things that they do well, and they put Giannis in a position to be the most complete basketball player that he can be.
I think the best way to put it is that basically everybody that plays for the Bucks has an above average league true shooting percentage, which accounts for the value of threes versus the value of twos and the value of free throws, etc. And by just calculating which shots are the best, the Bucks are taking tons of threes, tons of shots at the rim. So even on nights where their threes aren't falling, they win the game because they're overwhelming at the rim. And it starts with Giannis, but really Eric Bledsoe is shooting a higher volume at the rim than any other point guard in the league. He's making more shots within 3 feet than any other guard, basically any other non-center besides Giannis. Like what these two are doing at the rim is just crazy. And so much of that is helped out by Brook Lopez. We kind of saw DeAndre Jordan DeAndre Jordan hasn't been a good defensive center this year. Like I want to preface it by saying that, but he was like trying to like leave Brook Lopez open so he could protect the rim. And you can't do that. All of a sudden he gets open and he hits 4 threes in the first quarter and the game's over. Like the Bucks have already gotten 4 wide open looks from 3 for their best 3-point shooter. And like, if you haven't listened to a basketball podcast in 2 years and you just decide to listen to this, yeah, Brook Lopez is the best 3-point shooter on the Milwaukee Bucks, who are second in the league and made threes a game. And that pretty much sums it up.
It is laughable. Really, it is.
It's crazy. Nothing about it makes sense. I mean, it does now that we've seen 45 games of it or whatever, but like,
tell us 6 months ago.
Yeah, if I told you 6 months ago, you'd be like, okay, Junes, and you just leave, and you'd be like, I'm not, this is ridiculous.
And it is ridiculous, and you know, it's still amazing every time you look at the standings to see the Bucks are in this situation. And I think what's turned the corner so much is that the Bucks are winning games that they're supposed to. They don't have letdown games. I don't know what it was with Jason Kidd, but there was letdowns every week, at least one.
Well, they like couldn't win back-to-back games under Jason Kidd. They would come off a big win, and there was no way they were. And like when this team gets behind, they're like, we're not going to lose. They erase leads like no other. At one point, they had the most comebacks from down 10 of any team in the league, and I don't know if that's still true because it doesn't seem like they get down 10 as much anymore, but they're just, I mean, they're blowing teams out. They're coming back from deficits. They're coming back from deficits to blow teams out. They're doing it all. They like in terms of energy and effort they put forth each game. They're like, there hasn't really been a dud this year where they just give a 0 from 0 to 48. It's been good all year.
Who would have thunk that the words we would be using for the reason the Bucks are being good would be energy and effort? Jason, you know what
Jason Kidd thought that. He knew it.
He knew it the whole time. That's just what they needed.
They're just trying now.
Yeah. And it's funny because like you start to wonder, I mean, there's no question that he caused like problems like that, but how much of it was just because they just didn't like playing for him?
I think more than anybody wants to give credit to, we hated Jason Kidd for a lot of what he did on the basketball court, but in general, when you watched him do interviews and stuff, he wasn't a likable guy. And, that's why I never really bought that Giannis was like super devastated, because I don't believe that Giannis's teammates liked Jason Kidd that much. They might have respected him. A lot of people respect him. I respect what he did as a player, but like, it's really tough to work for somebody who talks the way that Jason does.
Absolutely. All right, so let's transition into this upcoming game against Charlotte. Like we mentioned, 1-1 on the season, a narrow victory in Charlotte, and then a Charlotte victory against Milwaukee to follow that. So the rubber match here. What are your kind of thoughts about this game with the Bucks having a few days off? It's been kind of a stretch where they haven't had that many days off. So what are you excited to see for the game on Friday?
I just hope they don't come out flat. I don't really anticipate it. The only thing I want to see from this game is how they defend Kemba. He torched him on opening night, and that was rough. But like, they're a much better defensive team now. Eric Bledsoe is fighting much harder to get out over screens. We'll see what exactly happens. I don't think they'll have Brook hang as far back in pick and roll, and I think that will be an important adjustment just because the best defense on a star player is making them give up the ball. Like, I'll take Cody Zeller rim runs over Kemba Walker pull-ups, and that's just more of a statement on Cody Zeller than anything else because Kemba is just that good. Also, he just won't shoot that well again. It's incredibly unlikely. But really, for me, it starts and ends with Kemba. And I think one thing to just sort of remember when you look at this Hornets game is this could be a first-round matchup. The Hornets,
absolutely. That's what I was just
they
about
might
to
be
say.
in the 8th seed right now, but
they're in the 7.
Okay, so they're going to be right there. I mean, we're 50 games in, and we know that the Bucks are probably going to be the 1 or the 2 because the team that's closest in record to Toronto, Indy, just lost their star player for the rest of the year. So I expect them to fall off a little bit. Boston just isn't there this year. They're at this point, I think they're 7 games back of the Bucks, and you got to wonder if the Bucks are going to lose 7 more games for the rest of the year. But like, even if they do, are the Celtics only going to lose 3? Are they only going to lose 4? Because if the Celtics win at like a 75% clip the rest of the year, which is what the Bucks have been winning at this year, that means the Bucks would have to win at like a 60% clip to even it out or something like that. So it just doesn't seem likely that any team can catch them now besides Toronto and maybe Philly. So you're looking at the teams that are in the 7 and 8, and that's a mess. Those teams, we have no idea if it's going to be Brooklyn, Detroit. I
really like Brooklyn. To like get a little bit off topic, I think that they're, I watched a couple of their games, and not saying I watch them all the time by any means, but I'm impressed with what they're doing.
No. Once they get Karis LeVert back, they're definitely a scarier team. They just don't have the talent right now to compete. Like, it won't happen because I think the top 4 seeds are so dominant, and we don't know how much Indy will fall off because Oladipo did miss 10 games earlier this year, and they were like 8-2. They were still pretty good. But if you were getting an Oladipo-less Indy against Brooklyn in a playoff series, like, that might be pretty close. Like, Miles Turner's having a really good year, but like Jared Allen's taking steps forward, D'Lo's taking steps forward, Spencer Dinwiddie's probably going to win 6th Man of the Year. You kind of look up and down, and they have a really solid roster of guys that a lot of people wrote off.
And especially when Karis gets back, it could be good when that happens. But getting back to this contest, I agree with you. I think Kemba Walker obviously will not shoot, hopefully, to the magnitude that he did in the previous matchup. I'm not really concerned about anyone else on the roster. I'm kind of find it interesting that, Jeremy Lamb and Malik Monk are getting a majority of, 15 and 10 points apiece. So they're getting, decent production out of their 2s and 3s. So you got to see maybe if looking for another good performance out of Sterling Brown defensively, as well as, all those guys. Really, you would just want to see continuous progression. I mean, we're at that point in the season where there's not really a lot to talk about that's new on a game-to-day basis. I mean, you want to look at matchups, obviously, but in people, how are they trending? But we've kind of seen like the general concepts and the general themes thus far, I feel like. But, now it's just kind of fine-tuning them and kind of getting them to the playoffs,
Absolutely. I don't want to say the Bucks can coast from here on out because there's still a ton to learn and a ton to improve on, but the Bucks don't game plan from game to game. They make small adjustments for the stars, but they're not going to lay down any more of their cards. I think we've seen all the cards the Bucks are going to play in the regular season, and really their game-to-game excellence is just going to overwhelm most teams.
And I agree with that. And like I said, you don't want to say that they're going to coast, but you almost feel like you can trust this team at this point, and it's kind of scary as a Bucks fan because the word trust in this team hasn't necessarily coincided very well throughout the years. But there is kind of a bigger discussion happening on social media. Gary Wolf will take it for what it is. His report of one of the Bucks' 4 big free agents this offseason not wanting to return, and obviously you jump to Khris Middleton based off of that history. But and the question grows from that is, can the Bucks win a championship with Khris Middleton as a 2? I know my position on it. Al, I'll let you kind of dissect this first. I'm sure you kind of have if we had a PowerPoint, we could do that, but you're just gonna have to give a nice soliloquy about it here.
So I don't really know what to say about Khris Middleton. I think that this entire debate has sort of spiraled out of control, and I don't really know where to start exactly. Khris is the second best player on the Bucks, and he has been, he continues to be. I don't want to get on this basketball soapbox where I claim to know more about basketball than everybody else, but I just want to say, go back and look at the game tape. Look at how he's defended. They put the second most attention on him, and I feel that's pretty evident from game to game. I feel that when you watch the games, you see the attention they pay to Khris, the effort they put into defending him, and it's just sort of on another level from what is expended on Bledsoe, what is expended on Lopez. I mean, DeAndre Jordan didn't even try and guard Brook Lopez, and that just doesn't happen with Khris Middleton. And I think that in general, forwards are more valuable because of their versatility. But when you look at what Khris does, we've seen him guard 2s, we've seen him guard 4s. He usually guards 3s, but that level of versatility is so valuable. And I think we get swept up in what Brook's doing shooting wise, and we see that Bledsoe's attempts have gone up, but Khris is still second by a good margin and made 3s for this team. Eric Bledsoe's shooting, I think he might have gone under 30%. If not, he's just a touch over 30%, where Khris is at a fairly good 38. His 2-point percentage has fallen off a lot, and I would argue last year was sort of unsustainably good in the mid-range. But he's above his career average for shooting at the rim. He's shooting 62% there. That's not great, but it's not really bad either. I just try and always express stuff in points per possession. And, right now a Khris 3 is a 1.21 points per possession. And Khris shot at the rim is 1.24, which are both above. I believe the Bucks are a 117 offensive rating. So both of those are above that. And really, if Chris's main 2 forms of shots, aside from his mid-range, which he really doesn't go to as often as he used to, are above average shots for this league leading offense, what more can you ask for?
And I see a lot of, Khris Middleton's baskets. He's had lows in his career so far this season about percentage of point field goals attempted. So, I mean, he's obviously having to get his more, and I guess it's kind of correlating. But his per 36 numbers are in points, assists, and rebounds are career highs. I think that you're starting to see not as much. The Bucks are not relying on Khris Middleton as much. They have a good team around him, and they don't need him to go bananas every night. And people are expecting him. I guess when I watch the Bucks and I see him play, and this is just merely an eye test, I don't know if he hits consecutive shots necessarily as much in a row. I think if you're just looking at it, not looking at the numbers or anything, I just think that he's taken a step back because his team has been so good. And Giannis said it. Khris has sacrificed more than anyone for this team to be great. And that happens in minutes and shots, and that's fine. And if Khris is okay with that, that's okay with us. And if the Bucks eventually get to an Eastern Conference Finals or an NBA Finals, for example, and it does work, and Chris's numbers aren't as good, who's to say Khris isn't going to get paid a more reasonable number, and it will work. But and that's a whole other situation, the off season. But in terms of this season, I mean, Khris Middleton has to be it.
And I like, again, I don't want to get on a basketball soapbox, but you can't just say, well, all of Chris's numbers have fallen off. Like, you got to look at his role. I believe Giannis missed he missed the 7th game of the season against the Raptors. And I said I don't know if I said it on Twitter, on a podcast, or where I said it, but I said, Khris is going to have to go off for them to win tonight. And I think Khris ended the game with 18 points. And he wasn't the leading scorer. I don't think he was even close. But the Bucks won the game pretty handily. And that was the first time I sort of noticed, the Bucks don't need Khris Middleton to be a 30-point-a-game guy when Giannis is out. Like, this team is really good. They don't need to just – and, like, anybody could tell you that his shots are down, so he's going to score less or whatever. But, like, I think it's just really significant to me how much better the team is around him. So he doesn't feel the need to push it. He doesn't feel the need to run the offense through him when Giannis is on the bench and he's out there. And I guess we should appreciate that.
I do. I appreciate Khris. If you are listening for some reason and you feel unappreciated, we appreciate you.
Love him.
Love you. But I agree. I think, when you get into the off season and all the numbers, I think that, obviously, it could be a different story. But as of today, Khris Middleton is doing everything that he needs to do. He seems content with it. The team seems content with it. And as long as the Bucks continue to win, I don't see there being any problem with it.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that the Bucks need a second All-Star because they have the best team in the East? Do you think they deserve one?
Because I think
personally, go ahead.
I think if you just look at what everyone else is doing in the East, I think, and like kind of look at what trends have been in the past. I mean, the Atlanta Hawks had all five starters were all four. Okay, regardless, 4 starters were all-stars. I mean, it can happen. I don't necessarily think the Bucks are taking the national media by storm. I think people that understand basketball understand that the Bucks are a very good team and probably one of the best. Obviously, record-wise, they're one of they're the best winning percentage-wise, but they're probably one of the best 3 teams in the NBA any given day. So, I think maybe Khris Middleton has earned himself a spot. I don't know, though. I guess, I haven't really looked at the fan voting to see where he was on that. But as far as player and media, I mean, if they see what's going on in Milwaukee, they have to give him a second All-Star.
See, I'm trying to think now. I don't think any of those Hawks were a starter. I think they might have all been voted in by coaches and media. I don't remember exactly how it goes. I think I could tell you how it all works for baseball, which I care about a lot less, but I just know that I don't know if I think it might just be coaches. It might be coaches and players.
I think for the NBA, it's 50% is the fan vote, and then the other 50% is split up 25 and 25 between players and media.
Yeah, I was more so thinking for the bench, and I don't know what it is there.
Oh, well, I think it's the same.
Is it? So it's like half. So the media doesn't vote. Yeah, that makes sense, actually. I think it is. So it's half coaches, half players.
Yeah, something like that.
So we should probably change the topic before we talk about more things that we don't know anything about.
That's true. But, well, the Bucks coaching staff should be the staff, right? So if anything injury-wise would go down, Budenholzer would pick, right?
I believe it's the commissioner there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, don't quote me because
we'll have to read up on some of that.
Personally, I don't think they will get a second All-Star. I look at the list of names and I think, does Khris Middleton or Eric Bledsoe deserve it over? I guess like Ben Simmons is the guy at the fringe right now. Maybe. Kyle Lowry, maybe. Like Kyle Lowry's numbers have fallen off a lot this year, but like.
Maybe
his team's doing really good things too. So like for me, I'm not like mad at all with the situation. Like if they only get Giannis in, Giannis is the best player in the East. He's going to be the captain, so he gets to pick who's on his team. So
well, Victor Oladipo's not going to be in it now.
Well, I mean, that helps. I mean, maybe like maybe it's just because I don't think Atlanta is like vastly better than Milwaukee in any means in terms of media size. It's really not that big of a city. I think I don't know how many people know that, but they're somewhat similarly sized, maybe closer than people would think. I really think it was that winning streak that sold people. Like they won 24, 26 in a row or something like that. And then, and like, I think the season Paul Millsap was having is probably better than the season Khris Middleton was having. I think Al Horford was their best player. So, and like Giannis obviously blows that away, but like, I don't think Kyle Korver should have been an all-star.
No,
it was sort of a different year though. The East was a lot more down. When you look at guys like Blake Griffin,
that's true.
Wasn't in the East. LeBron was, and Jimmy Butler was at the time, but now Jimmy's back. He was gone for a year, but Paul George left. It sort of always changes, but some people don't want to give Bradley Beal a spot because the Wizards aren't really good, and it's like I just when you look at what Bradley Beal's doing, I'm not going to be upset if Bradley Beal is there over Khris Middleton. Like Bradley Beal's doing it as a number one option, so I don't really care if his team's worse.
I just wonder if teams are gonna. I just wonder if some like these media people are gonna feel obligated. I guess that's where you go into concern. But are people gonna really feel obligated to put a Bucks player in? You know what I mean? If Kevin Love on the Cavs, like Kevin Love may not have always had the greatest season on the Cavs, but they maybe felt obligated to put him in,
Yeah, because of what Kevin Love was previously. I guess Kevin Love's a guy who's made it the last few years who's not going to make it this year. Like they're not going to feel obligated to put a guy in that's been injured the entire year. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
what if Dwayne Wade makes it over him? Like obviously that's a whole nother situation, but is it right? I mean, should Adam Silver just say, all right, every year we're going to have two old guys that are going to go on an all-star team, I mean, it could be fun. Like two guys that are on their last ride.
Because people do think that should happen, but I kind of hate it because like all-star selections are criteria for contracts. They bring it up when you're talking about a guy for the Hall of Fame. And so like, that bothers me.
But what if it's like a designation? It's not an all-star, but you're like
players over 35.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I think that'd be cool. Or like even have like two rookies in it too. I mean, obviously you have the rookie showcase, but if obviously there would be you wouldn't be able to like measure it really, like to figure out who those guys would be, but I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I almost feel like you'd have to make the game longer because there are already guys who only play like 10 or 12 minutes, and some of that's by choice. I think Boogie didn't play last year at all, but then he got traded an hour after. So,
and then he got hurt.
Oh no, wait, that was the year before. Yeah.
No, and then he got hurt an hour after.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that we covered a lot. I think that the Bucks are going to beat Charlotte handily. You?
Yeah, at this point, I don't really predict them to lose any games. They've already played their 2 games against the Warriors. That's the only team that I think is on paper significantly more talented than them.
I agree with you. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening to another edition of the Cream City Cast. If you want to always check us out, you can on CreamCityCentral.com. Check us out on Twitter at CreamCityCentral. Check Al on Twitter at Junes Fauches. You want to spell it for him? I don't know if I can hear you.
JUNESFOSHIZ. Did that one go through? I think I sat on my mic.
No, it's good. That one went through. So we're all good. We got the social medias out of the way. Now I want you to all head to Cream City Cast on Twitter, on SoundCloud, and check out a exclusive interview I did with UW Whitewater center Nate Truin, who is going to be going into the NFL draft, went to the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, and was recognized as a first team on a couple websites there. So exciting story over there, and always exciting stuff with the Bucks and over at CreamCityCast. So we'll get back to you after the Bucks face off against the Hornets, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you. Go Bucks.